Recorded in front of a live studio audience in Nickelodeon Studios at Universal Studios, Florida.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
What's up, everybody? Trav Moco is here. Welcome to the third episode of the Trav Moco Show for Season 2. I am the one they call Trav Moco, and I'm here with it's Episode 3. We're going to talk about debate number 3, the final debate, and we couldn't be happier, right? You, me, everybody. Didn't really see anything that we hadn't seen before out of these two, but it's still must-see TV once again. Two of the most flawed candidates of probably all time. For me, I'm going to vote Trump, but not reluctantly, because my disdain for the Clintons is that strong. But I know that Trump, we could have done better on the Republican end. There's a lot, each debate I thought he would step it up. I thought he'd bring up things that he didn't bring up before. I thought there's a lot of moments he missed. But he's not a master debater. He's never really done this before. He did well in the primaries. But that was kind of a clown car and whatever. But anyway, this is just a different animal, and some of his I don't want to say unprepared, but just his normal guy routine, just being a regular guy, has cost more of a regular guy. He's just not a politician, so that has cost him some opportunities that he's missed. But he's done well. Each debate definitely got better. Each one you could definitely saw improvements. If they had 5 debates, I'm sure he'd look even better. So, but 3 is enough. Trust me. We had the VP debate, and Mike Pence hit it out of the park. So he definitely won that. So they did well. You definitely can say Trump lost the first one, and then you can make a case for either the last two. I definitely thought Trump won the second one, and this one was a little more even. Again, you've heard a lot of the same stuff. But anyway, I'm going to play some clips. Before I get into that, thanks for listening, those who have joined me once again. You can hit me up on Twitter, just Trav Moco. You can look me up on YouTube. You can find these episodes, Trav Moco. Again, you just type Trav Moco into anything that I'm mentioning, and you will find me. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Obviously here on Spreaker.com, other episodes, all of that, and email Real Trav Moco, or what is it? What did I make that? I think it's travmocoshow@gmail.com. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Real Trav Moco is the Instagram. But anyway, look me up anywhere on there. I have lots of other content. And real quick, before I jump into that, I just want to share that on Monday, the 17th, I celebrated my 2nd year sober from alcohol, and just clean and sober in general. I dabbled in the old drugs here and there, but it was really drinking that was my vice of choice. And I became a pretty out of control alcoholic for a while there. So it's just definitely something I take a lot of pride in, through AA meetings and my faith and different things that I've done, family support and their love and support. I just want to say thank you to them, and they know who they are. And anyway, that's something that I've wanted to talk about. I thought about sharing it, and I made a little comment on my Facebook, my personal Facebook page, about it, because there's definitely a deep, dark past and story with that comes with that. especially when you hit rock bottom. And everyone who's battled with addiction understands what rock bottom is. It's different for every person. You may think you hit rock bottom once or twice before you actually hit rock bottom. And some people have to hit rock bottom even more than once and have relapse. So it's definitely a struggle, and mine is everyone has a unique story, but we're all on the same page with our struggles with addiction and then getting clean and getting sober and whatever it may be. So I'm very proud of that. But it's something that maybe I'll share. And I have a separate tab on the Spreaker.com site. I have, episodes, my regular podcast, and I also have a little sidebar thing that says exclusive clips or exclusives. So I may put it on there, just my personal story of my battle with that. But anyway, that's for another day. For tonight, the battle was between Hillary and Trump for the third time, and let's jump in. I'll just start playing some clips here. Let's see if I got them. Yep. And I'll just jump in and out, and probably won't get to. I might talk a little football at the end, but a little pissed at my Steelers for looking like garbage, and then Ben's hurt, so I'm upset. I don't want to talk about it, but I may make a few comments. I didn't pull up any power rankings this time, just because of that, being annoyed at my team. So, but anyway, we'll just talk about the debate mostly, and go from there.
In this bucket about fitness to be president, there's been a lot of developments over the last 10 days since the last debate. I'd like to ask you about them. These are questions that the American people have. Secretary Clinton, during your 2009 Senate confirmation hearing, you promised to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest with your dealing with the Clinton Foundation while you were Secretary of State. But emails show that donors got special access to you. Those seeking grants for Haiti relief were considered separately from non-donors, and some of those donors got government contracts, taxpayer money. Can you really say that you kept your pledge to that Senate committee? And why isn't what happened and what went on between you and the Clinton Foundation, why isn't it what Mr. Trump calls pay to play?
Yeah, and this is one of the first moments of the night where I got really excited that I realized that this was a real home game, if you will, for Trump. That he was on his home turf because he had Chris Wallace. He was more of a, he's a Fox News anchor, but he's definitely going to be more moderate. I mean, he definitely took some shots at Trump. I thought he was definitely fair, but he at least took some shots and put Hillary on the hot seat with some really tough questions like this one. I mean, that is a hell of a setup that you didn't hear in the first two debates, where he's really putting her up against the wall, and wanting answers for the obvious corruption in the Clinton Foundation that we, who have done our homework, know about. And here's her answer.
Well, everything I did as Secretary of State was in furtherance of our country's interests and our values. The State Department has said that. I think that's been proven. But I am happy.
Now, that's all she spins on it, because now she's going to pivot and just talk about what good the Clinton Foundation does and not answer the question, which Chris Wallace is going to get on her about. But she didn't answer the question. She was a really weird non-answer, saying that everything she did was for the benefit of the country, and the State Department proved that. I don't know what that means. The State Department didn't do any type of investigation that I know of about what the Clinton Foundation was doing, and why would they? It has nothing to do with being the Secretary of State or the State Department. This is a weird non-answer that didn't make a whole lot of sense, especially for someone like me who knows the details of it and thought maybe. I mean, there's no explanation. The point is, there's no way to explain away what Chris Wallace just said is true. The things that she did, the pay for play and whatnot. But anyway, back to here. Now she's going to go on about the Clinton Foundation.
In fact, I'm thrilled to talk about the Clinton Foundation because it is a world-renowned charity, and I am so proud of the work that it does. I could talk for the rest of the debate. I know I don't have the time to do that. But just briefly,
thank God you don't.
The Clinton Foundation made it possible for 11 million people around the world with HIV/AIDS to afford treatment, and that's about half of all the people in the world who are getting treatment. in partnership with the American
Secretary
Health
Clinton.
Association, we have made environments in schools healthier for kids,
Secretary
including
Clinton,
healthier lunches.
respectfully, this is an open discussion.
Well, it is an open discussion.
I understand, and the specific question went to pay for play. Do you want to talk about that?
But there is no evidence. But there is a lot of evidence about the very good work
and it's a criminal
high
enterprise,
that
and
the
so many
Please let
people know
Mr.
it.
Trump speak.
It's a
have gotten
criminal
for their work.
enterprise. Saudi Arabia giving $25 million, Qatar, all of these countries. You talk about women and women's rights. So these are people that push gays off buildings. These are people that kill women and treat women horribly, and yet you take their money. So I'd like to ask you right now, why don't you give back the money that you've taken from certain countries that treat so horribly? Why don't you give back the money? I think it would be a great gesture, because she takes a tremendous amount of money, and you take a look at the people of Haiti. I was at a little Haiti the other day in Florida, and I want to tell you, they hate the Clintons.
This is awesome. This is an awesome comment where Trump is really getting after about the Haiti thing. There's so many different scandals and different things that you could point at with her in her career that you forget about so many others. At least I know I do. And one of them is the Haiti thing, where they had aid prepared for Haiti when they had, what was it? I think the earthquake, or I think it was the earthquake or whatever they had, the big natural disaster. It was a hurricane. I don't even remember. Who cares? Haiti's a third world country. It's garbage anyway. But the point is that the Clintons had aid. The people gave to the foundation so aid would be delivered to them, and then it never really got there. And it's kind of fuzzy as to whatever happened with that money. A little bit of money went down there, but I think there was they just made some excuse of concern about who the money was going to. You know, the government's there was a little not together. So they didn't really. They made some excuse if they didn't. You know, I don't know. They didn't give them money because they didn't know who to give it to, I guess. But the point is that people gave money and aid to them that never got to them. So interesting.
Because what's happened in Haiti with the Clinton Foundation is a disgrace, and you know it, and they know it, and everybody knows
Secretary
it.
Clinton.
Very quickly, we at the Clinton Foundation spend 90% of all the money that is donated on behalf of programs of people around the world and in our own country. I'm very.
Where does the other 10% go? You know, a non-for-profit foundation. You know, even if it was only 10% that the Clintons were keeping for themselves or going towards Hillary's campaign, which is where a lot of this foundation money has gone, at least of recent years, the last year or so. Even if that is only 10%, well, if you're getting $100 million in donations a year, that's $10 million that you just get a pocket and decide what you want to do with when you're supposed to be non-for-profit.
Proud of that. We have the highest rating from the watchdogs that follow foundations. And I'd be happy to compare what we do with the Trump Foundation, which took money from other people and bought a 6-foot portrait of Donald. I mean, who does that? It just was astonishing. But when it comes to Haiti, Haiti is the poorest country in our hemisphere. The earthquake and the hurricanes, it has devastated Haiti. Bill and I have been involved in trying to help Haiti for many years. The Clinton Foundation raised $30 million to help Haiti after the catastrophic earthquake and all of the terrible problems the people there had. We've done things to help small businesses, agriculture, and so much else. And we're going to keep working to help Haiti because it's an important part of the American
they don't want.
Now, it's important that she said we raised $30 million for Haiti. She didn't say we gave them $30 million in aid. It's a very important distinction. She's not lying, but she's not telling the whole truth either. They did receive money for Haiti, or the Clinton Foundation did, but Haiti itself did not receive much, if any of that money. I think they got a little bit, but it's just an important way that liars, people who are habitual liars and elaborate liars, they will tell a partial truth to make themselves feel better about a situation, kind of almost in a way of trying to explaining it away. So interesting strategy there.
Didn't help him anymore. I'd like to mention one thing. Trump Foundation, small foundation. People contribute. I contribute. The money goes 100% goes to different charities, including a lot of military. I don't get anything. I don't buy boats. I don't buy planes. What happens is the money goes out.
Wasn't some of the money used to settle your lawsuit, sir?
No, it was. We put up the American flag, and that's it. They put up the American flag. We fought for the right in Palm Beach to put up the American flag.
There was a penalty that was imposed by Palm Beach County, and the money came from your foundation.
And by the way, the money
yourself,
went to Fisher House, where they build houses. The money that you're talking about went to Fisher House, where they build houses for veterans and disabled.
I want to get into one
last... But of course, there's no way we can know whether any of that is true because he hasn't released his tax returns. He is the first candidate ever.
That's a point where Trump struggled. He didn't handle that question. He should have either pivoted or had a more solid, concrete answer, because I know a little bit about that situation. Even I was a little confused by the answer he gave. It's not a big deal, but it's still a little confusing. Of course, Hillary takes the opportunity and pounces on it.
To run for president in the last 40-plus years who has not released his tax returns. So everything he says about charity or anything else, we can't prove it. You can look at our tax returns. We've got them all out there. But what is really troubling is that we learned in the last debate he has not paid a penny in federal income tax. And we were talking about immigrants a few minutes ago, Chris. You know, half of all immigrants, undocumented.
That's not fucking true. He's definitely paid in federal income tax. She's referencing that 1 year of tax returns that came out. It's like from whatever, 92, 94. Someone got a hold of his tax returns for 1 year where he had a big loss. And because he claimed such a big loss, did not have to pay any taxes. I'm sure he's paid taxes. I mean, you can't not pay taxes for years and years and years and not be in federal prison or in big, big trouble. So she's saying that he's never paid federal taxes, which is completely untrue. His businesses, I'm sure, pay taxes. I assure you Donald Trump is paying taxes more often than not. If he's not, he's using a loophole in the tax code, which is not his fault. If the tax code is written in a way where you can take advantage of it, go right ahead. So anyway,
immigrants in our country actually pay federal income tax. So we have undocumented immigrants in America who are paying more federal income tax than a billionaire. I find that
let me just tell you very
astonishing.
Simply, we're entitled, because of the laws that people like her pass, to take massive amounts of depreciation and other charges, and we do it. And all of her donors, just about all of them, I know Buffett took hundreds of millions of dollars. George Soros, took hundreds of millions of dollars. Let me just explain. All of her donors, most of her donors have done the same thing as I did.
Okay.
And you know what you should have done?
Folks, we heard
and
this.
You know, Hillary, what you should have done? You should have changed the law when you were a United States Senator. If you don't like it.
Yeah.
Because your donors and your special interests are doing the same thing as I do, except even more so.
Well,
you should have changed the law, but you won't change the law because you take in so much money. I mean, I sat in my apartment today on a very beautiful hotel down the street, known as Trump.
Made with Chinese steel.
But I will tell you, I sat there watching ad after ad after ad, false ad, all paid for by your friends on Wall Street that gave so much money because they know you're going to protect them. And frankly, you should have changed the laws. If you don't like what I did, you should have changed the law.
So things get a little out of control there at the end between those two on that segment. It ends up being about the end of the segment. One thing I wanted to mention, I didn't find the clip, I forgot to add the clip, was that Chris Wallace did also ask her about the WikiLeaks, which she pivoted awkwardly into Putin. And basically, to summarize the whole the WikiLeaks, and I thought they'd spend more time on it. I hoped that Chris Wallace, the moderator, would have grilled her more on the WikiLeaks emails and different things that have come out, kind of exposing some of her corruption. But one of the things that I found, interesting about her pivot away from it when she was asked about it was that she. Well, it was an interesting pivot, but she definitely put the she put the blame on the Russians and she said it was Russian espionage. Putin, the Russians were to blame, that we should be more worried about what they've done to influence the American voting system in this election and all that. And I thought that was, that's an opportunity where Trump needs to say, well, you're doing the same thing with, even if that was true, even if Trump was collaborating with the Russians and they were working together, which I don't think is true. I think the Russians are acting on their own because they are trying to disrupt the system. They know that our guard is down as a country and we're weakened, so they're taking advantage of that. But it's also, there could be groups like Anonymous. WikiLeaks has nothing really to do too much with the Russians. There could be all types of anonymous hacktivists that are out there doing this. So it has very little to do with espionage or that Trump is in on it. But even if he was, then Trump, he could still make the argument that was like, well, you're doing the same thing. She gets money from Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and in Iran. And he made the point earlier that these are the countries that stone women for adultery, that kill gays on the streets, beheadings, and just they treat women and gays and all these nice fluffy social issues that tug at the heartstrings of liberals all the time. See, liberals don't ever vote with their head; they vote with their hearts. That's why voting conservative is more for men, and well-rounded women, because conservatives do things based on logic and reason. That's where a lot of our decisions are made. But decisions from the liberal and Democrat point of view are made out of emotion and feelings. When we got to take care of everybody and everyone's got to feel good and don't hurt my feelings, and they pull at your heartstrings with the social bullshit issues that mean fucking nothing if you can't pay your bills. If I do everything I can to feed other people, but I don't feed myself, how long is that going to last? That's the America that we're becoming, where we're doing so much to feed everyone else or to take care of everyone else. All our neighbors, all these countries need aid. We have to be there for everyone, be the world police, and blah, 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 blah. But we're not taking care of ourselves. We're not feeding ourselves and our own systems and taking care of our own bills. And eventually, and that's an unsustainable way to run a country, because this country will not, you can already tell we're falling apart, and we can't last like that. Anyway, I got way off topic there. Well, not off topic, it's just a little bit of a rant. But anyway, I'm going to jump in. I got another clip here. This was towards the end. They were talking about the national debt and some economic issues, which is definitely Trump's strong point, and he shows it time and time again. See, a lot of this other stuff, again, the social issues, that's the distraction. The distraction has never been about so much of his policy, but it's just the things he says. The bullshit with the women, which, by the way, let me just make one comment about that, very clear about the whole thing with the allegations on the women and the rape and things like that with Trump. If you think Donald Trump raped anyone and no one said anything, not a single woman came forward, he's worth billions, one of the richest men on the planet. You could have milked him at any point. Pulled a Donald Sterling, the old owner of the Clippers, with that gold digger cunt, ripped him off, and got him kicked out of the NBA because he, made a private conversation, off-the-cuff comments. And Paula Deen, Hulk Hogan, the list goes on of all the people whose lives have been ruined by gold diggers. If you don't think that no one wanted to come forward until the month before the election, and all these women come out of the woodworks, and all of a sudden, whoa, Trump's a rapist. He was never a rapist when he was on the Celebrity Apprentice or all these other shows. He was never, and it wasn't even rape. There's really been no allegations of rape. Actually, there has been none as far as I know. But there's just been the, we'll call it poor sexual conduct. Groping women or grabbing a woman inappropriately or kissing a woman when it's unwarranted. Things like that. Now that's it's there's extremes and levels of extremes of this. Obviously, none of that is excusable, even if it's true, but it's still not rape, which is what Bill Clinton's done, her husband. Anyway, so the point is that these economic issues, the most important things facing the country, are foreign trade deals, our foreign relations, with strength within. That's what Trump really was. Make America great again. That's what he's talking about. We have to be more worried about ourselves. He was the first Republican I've ever heard come out publicly and say we should have never gone into Iraq, because he's 100% right, and for various reasons, because it goes back to his original mantra, which is we don't need to be the world police, And there was no anyway. Let me play some more clip here. Again, this is when the topic was about the national debt, more economic issues, which is right within Trump's wheelhouse. So here we go.
We need to move on to our final segment, and that is the national debt, which has not been discussed until tonight. Our national debt as a share of the economy, our GDP, is now 77%. That's the highest since just after World War II. But the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says, Secretary Clinton, under your plan, debt would rise to 86% of GDP over the next 10 years. Mr. Trump, under your plan, they say it would rise to 105% of GDP over the next 10 years. Question is, why are both of you ignoring this problem? Mr. Trump, you go first.
Well, I say they're wrong because I'm going to create tremendous jobs. And we're bringing GDP from really 1%, which is what it is now. And if she got in, it'll be less than zero. But we're bringing it from 1% up to 4%. And I actually think we can go higher than 4%. I think you can go to 5 or 6%. And if we do, you don't have to bother asking your question, because we have a tremendous machine. We will have created a tremendous economic machine once again. To do that, we're taking back jobs. We're not going to let our companies be raided by other countries where we lose all our jobs. We don't make our product anymore. It's very sad. But I'm going to create the kind of a country that we were from the standpoint of industry. We used to be there. We've given it up. We've become very, very sloppy. We've had people that are political hacks making the biggest deals in the world, bigger than companies. You take these big companies, these trade deals are far bigger than these companies. And yet we don't use our great leaders, many of whom back me and many of whom back Hillary, I must say. But we don't use those people. Those are the people, these are the greatest negotiators in the world. We have the greatest business people in the world. We have to use them to negotiate our trade deals. We use political hacks. We use people.
Well, this is a great point. For one, Trump, you can hear the passion in his voice. If there's anything that this man's passionate about, it's money. And any successful businessman in the history of successful businessmen, especially in modern American capitalist system, they all understand money and finances. They love money. That's everything to them. So this is a passionate issue that you can hear in the tone of his voice. He calms down. He's on point. He's controlled. He's consistent. He knows this. He knows this is his world. He knows the subject.
People that get the position because they made a campaign contribution, and they're dealing with China and people that are very much smarter than they are. So we have to use our great people. But with that being said, we will create an economic machine, the likes of which we haven't seen in many decades. And people, Chris, will again go back to work, and they'll make a lot of money, and we'll have companies that will grow and expand and start from new.
Secretary Clark.
I mean, that's the best answer of the night by far for Trump. It's a good point that Chris Wallace made in the beginning. In the beginning of his question, he says, we're going to talk about the national debt, which is something that has not been brought up until this point. Now, think about that. The national debt, we're in an election cycle. We're trillions of dollars of debt, and yet neither of the moderators before him, Lester Holt, Anderson Cooper, and bitch face from ABC, who looks like she had a stroke, and I hope if she hasn't, I hope she does. Neither of those three people brought up the national debt. Amazing. I mean, just think about that. That is it's fucking disgusting. I mean, how do you not bring that up? We're so far in debt, it's insane. But the reason you don't bring that up is for two reasons. One is because that's Trump's strongest point. As you can see, he nails the question, and he's on point. He knows what he's talking about. The other part is that the national debt has doubled when Obama took office. I mean, the national debt has gone up with almost every president since I don't know for a long time. I don't know the number. I don't want to misquote it, but it's been a while, and it's just kind of trickled up, and then George W. Bush kind of really made it inflate that debt and made the debts higher. And then Obama, when he came in office, he doubled the debt. He doubled the national debt by himself. He has brought in, and George W. Bush was horrible in adding on debt to the national debt, adding to the national debt, I guess is the way I would say that. And Obama, but that was a war. I mean, we had the Iraq War. War times are usually, can cause debt, I guess. But anyway, Obama doubled that without a war, without just blowing it on stupid social issues and stupid programs like Obamacare, for instance, which blew a lot of money. Man, it's you kind of wonder where all that money went. Anyway, he nails that question, and now this is Hillary's response.
Well, first, when I hear Donald talk like that and know that his slogan is "Make America Great Again," I wonder when he thought America was great. And before he rushes and says, before you and President Obama were there, I think it's important to recognize that he has been criticizing our government for decades. Back in 1987, he took out a $100,000 ad in the New York Times during the time when President Reagan was president and basically said exactly what he just said now, that we were the laughing stock of the world. He was criticizing President Reagan. This is the way Donald thinks about himself, puts himself into, the middle and says, I alone can fix it, as he said on the convention stage. But if you look at the debt, which is the issue you asked about, Chris, I pay for everything I'm proposing. I do not add a penny to the national debt. I take that.
Now, a couple of things about that. She, of course, she hasn't personally added anything to the national debt because she hasn't president yet. So of course not, but she will. I mean, she's president. It's only going to get worse. It's going to be a continuation of the Obama administration and those policies. But the other thing is, she gets on Trump for being making it all about him or saying he alone can fix it. Well, that's how every president thinks. Every president, no matter if they're Republican or Democrat, whatever, they are, with the exception of George Washington. I've said this in the past because George Washington didn't want to be president. But anyway, almost every president, I would say, especially in modern era, last 100 years, they have a massive ego. You have to have a massive ego and belief in yourself to say, I am the one person, the one man who can run the country, and I'm the smartest one to do it. That's what you're telling everyone. You say, I can run the country. You have to be at least somewhat egotistic in a way that you have to. So there's nothing wrong with that, having that mentality of I alone can fix it. There's nothing wrong with that. People like a strong leader and someone who has that confidence, whether they be right or wrong. And that's something Obama does not have.
I do think it's we've got to come to grips with. So when I talk about how we're going to pay for education, how we're going to invest in infrastructure, how we're going to get the cost of prescription drugs down, and a lot of the other issues that people talk to me about all the time, I've made it very clear we are going where the money is. We are going to ask the wealthy and corporations to pay their fair share. And there is
This is an old, tired rhetoric. The wealthy pay a plenty in taxes. What's happened in the Obama administration is that the middle class has had their taxes raised quite a bit. Now they've snuck it in over the years and different things. They've defunded Social Security and Medicare to help pay for Obamacare, which is then they've raised taxes, in part of that. But the middle class, I see it just in my paycheck. And I don't even think I'm middle class. I'm pretty low class. I'm a pretty low class motherfucker. But I see it in my paycheck, especially when I was living in Ohio, where that state's a little more liberal run. I guess it's moderate, but anyway, I noticed that just in my paychecks, how much I was getting taken out, like 25% between all of the, it's not just, the people always just want to talk about federal taxes and the federal tax rate. Well, what about Social Security and Medicare and your local state, state tax and county tax and city tax? You get fucking, drained from all angles, and it's fucking retarded. Me making $8.50 an hour when I was working at a cell phone, selling fucking cell phones, I shouldn't have 20 to 25% of my paycheck going every week just because I work full time. I need that money. It's hard to get by. I don't know how people do it in places like New Jersey and New York and Ohio and places like that, where they just get fucking destroyed on taxes, and they keep voting the liberals in, who are the ones who keep raising taxes. It just doesn't make sense.
There's no evidence whatsoever that will slow down or diminish our growth. In fact, I think just the opposite. We'll have what economists call middle-out growth. We've got to get back to rebuilding the middle class, the families of America. That's where growth will come from. That's why I want to invest in you. I want to invest in your family. And I think that's the smartest way to grow the economy, to make the economy fairer. And we just have a big disagreement about this. It may be because of our...
No, there's no disagreement about that, and that's another non-fucking answer. There's no policy there. That's just a big political nonsensical fucking answer that makes no sense. Well, how invest in the families? How? Doing what? You're taking from the rich and giving to the poor? That's not what you said. You said you're going to make the rich pay their fair share in taxes. Well, how is that going to help us? The low people on the lower end of the economic scale. There's that's not an answer. It's a nonsensical bullshit answer.
Experiences, he started off with his dad as a millionaire. I started off with my dad as a small businessman.
We've heard this before.
I think it's, it's a difference that affects how we see the world and what we want to do with the economy.
Time.
Thank you, Hillary. Could I just respond?
Well, no.
Because I did disagree with Ronald Reagan very strongly on trade. I disagreed with him. We should have been much tougher on trade even then. I've been waiting for years. Nobody does it right. And frankly, now we're going to do it right.
All right. The one last area I want to get into with you in this debate is the fact that the biggest driver of our debt is entitlements, which is 60% of all federal spending. Now, the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget has looked at both of your plans, and they say neither of you has a serious plan that is going to solve the fact that Medicare is going to run out of money in the 2020s, Social Security is going to run out of money in the 2030s, and at that time, recipients are going to take huge cuts in their benefits. So, in effect, the final question I want to ask you in this regard is, and let me start with you, Mr. Trump, would President Trump make a deal to save Medicare and Social Security that included both tax increases and benefit cuts, in effect, a grand bargain on entitlements?
I'm cutting taxes. We're going to grow the economy. It's going to grow at a record.
And then so I'm not going to bore you because this is like the last question of the night before they give their closing statements, which whatever. But anyway, neither of them really answered that question well. That was a big setup question that both of them dropped the ball in, not understanding what they're going to do with entitlements. I don't even know much about that. That's some economic talk that I'm not privy to, although Chris Wallace is very involved in the Fox Business channel, I believe, and he's really into the economic side of things, so he understands that well. I almost feel like that's one of his, like a personal question that he wanted to ask towards the end, that he got to throw in there. So, but the point is, man, this is just Trump again. He did well on, economic issues like this. I think he did well at certain points, but he just never really learned his lesson. He got better in each debate, but never really learned his lesson about just letting things go, or he gets so worked up about defending himself and how people perceive him, and he always has to explain himself. But then when he does it, he kind of sounds like an idiot a little bit, and where he's just kind of, stumbling all over the place trying to make his point, and and he's right a lot of the time. I've studied him. I know like a lot about his past dealings and his businesses and things like that. So I know what he's getting at. I almost want to go up there and talk for him sometimes because I know he's not really getting it across the way he's supposed to. But all in all, this election is about this. This is my closing statement on the debates. I thought Trump did better on all three of them, or as they went along. But this election is about, you have two choices. You have one choice, which is a story we've all seen before. We've seen what Bill Clinton does. We've seen what Hillary Clinton does. We've seen what Barack Obama does. We've seen what Al Gore does. We've seen what John Kerry does. We've seen what these people do with power, and they beget more power for themselves and their buddies. They talk a big game about how they care about you and the social issues, and they deliver on issues like gay marriage and things like that. They keep the Democrats and the liberal voters, the mindless idiots, the mindless zombie, the sheeple, to continue to follow them, to vote for them. And like Trump has brought up in the past or in these debates, he did a great job bringing that. He said, he says they'll go to the Black and Latino communities and get them to vote for him and say, okay, see you in 4 years. And I loved when he would make that point because it's so true. I mean, you look at these communities that have just been decimated with crime and poverty and poor education and schools and whatnot. And, these liberals keep talking a big game, but they do nothing to fix these communities. And yet they keep voting them in. And, Chicago and L.A. and these states and these cities that have been Democrat-dominated with Democrat mayors and senators and governors. And then they wonder why everything's shit. And then they get pissed at Republicans. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. But, it's not going to. Liberalism is a mental disorder. It's a disease of the mind because, like I said before, you will vote if you have logic and reasoning, and you use logic and reasoning in your processes of just life in general, you will vote conservative or libertarian, which I think libertarian is a great way to go. And we're going to see more of that in the future. And I'm kind of running out of time, but I do want to touch on this real quick, and that's, Gary Johnson is an idiot. He's a bad representation of the Libertarian Party. He had his chances, and he blew it, which was too bad. And I was actually kind of leaning towards, once things were kind of weird there, and I've grown up. I grew up conservative. I'm becoming more libertarian as I get older, because I care more about the government being out of my life. I care more about economic issues, and I care less about social issues. I don't really care. Ultimately, I do, as long as it doesn't affect me and I can raise my kids and my family can have their views. If someone else wants to have theirs, fine. As long as it don't tread on me kind of mantra. But I think a third party will rise over time. I think that there's enough people my age and around my age, anywhere from 18 to 35, we'll say, that really have this disdain for both parties, and things like this are really making it this is a big moment in the growth of the next voting class, the next adults, the next generation. Trump and Hillary are both very flawed candidates, and it's sad in a lot of ways that we do as Republicans and it's sad we have these choices. It really is. Trump has done well just because people want change. People want something new. People want new ideas. They're so desperate for just someone who's real, someone who has real ideas, someone who's not Mr. Politics, someone who understands the economy, someone who's at least has the tendency to be a leader. I really think Trump, if he doesn't make America great again, he at least can't make it worse. I mean, it's going to get better. And so don't let any fears of riots or any bullshit get to you. I don't think any of that stuff is founded in reality. And there's going to be some craziness. There's going to be craziness no matter what. And it's just one way or another. There's going to be some unrest. Whoever wins, But it'll calm down, and we'll all get together. You know, everyone thought when Obama was elected, he was the Antichrist, but he wasn't. And people thought he'd get shot and hung, and he didn't. So everything was fine. Anyway, I'm running out of time. I'm completely out of time. Thanks for joining me. Hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere, whatever. Thanks for listening. This is the Trav Moco Show. I am the one and only Trav Moco, and I'll see you next week.